Courage is contagious, and we hope to see it spread in our nation like wildfire. Welcome back to the Gold Report, where we inspire you to be 10% more courageous in your daily life. I'm so glad you're here. Please like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm pleased to introduce to you our very special guest today. We'll be right back. The WHO pandemic treaty is a direct threat to our national sovereignty. If we've learned anything since 2020, is that we cannot allow other entities to control our agenda. Whether they call this a health-related agenda or by any other name, you must reject the WHO pandemic treaty today. Please go to whocontrolswho.com and sign our petition. Thank you for your support. Joining us today is Matt Staver. Mr. Staver is Senior Pastor, Founder, and Chairman of Liberty Counsel. He has the highest AV rating given to attorneys by Martindale-Hubbell. He's an attorney in Florida in the District of Columbia and is board certified in appellate practice by the Florida Bar. He has over 300 published legal opinions. He's the author of 8 law review publications, many booklets and brochures, hundreds of articles, and several books. He has filed numerous briefs and argued in many federal and state courts, including the recent Fischer versus United States, currently before the Supreme Court. Oral arguments were just heard on April 16th. He pastors several churches, and he has multiple language abilities. He reads Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek, and Syriac. I'm delighted to have with us today Mr. Matt Staver, and I know that you're involved in lots and lots of things. I speak about your work from time to time about the religious liberty cases that you've brought that are really working to help ensure or hopefully return our country to a more righteous state. But I'd love to talk with you today about a couple of things that are really current at the moment. The Fischer versus United States appeal had oral arguments this week in the Supreme Court, and I'm curious about your perspective on that.
Well, I am optimistic, and thank you for having me on this program. But I'm optimistic that the Supreme Court will rule in favor of Fischer and the others in this case for good reasons. The Department of Justice under the Biden administration has weaponized the federal government and used this Sarbanes-Oxley Act in a way that it was never intended to be used. It was intended to be used against corporations like the Enron Corporation that was committing financial fraud, and they were changing documents, destroying documents, altering documents, so that they would interfere with an ongoing SEC investigation into corporate fraud. That's why the Sarbanes-Oxley Act was passed. It has nothing to do with January 6th or anything connected with January 6th. So the facts of this case are good. I believe that with the statements from the Solicitor General, who typically is a very good oral advocate, but I believe on this particular case, really got caught flat-footed multiple times by questions from the justices. For example, like one question was, what about the people that showed up on January 6th, but they never entered the Capitol? Could the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, could that actually be applied against them with a penalty of up to 20 years in prison? And the answer was yes, if they had criminal intent. We're talking about people who never even entered the Capitol. If they had criminal intent to do what? To gather and assemble according to their First Amendment rights, as all Americans are guaranteed. That is absolutely bizarre. And I think with those kinds of questions, I believe that the justices will rule against the federal government.
Right. So I follow the Fischer case very, very carefully, as you probably guessed, because I was a J6 defendant and, of course, nonviolent, all those things. And so I'm very, very familiar with 1512C2, and I've spoken about it to our audience, and so they're somewhat familiar with it. So I am very curious, as an attorney, you're an attorney, I'm an attorney. It's very disturbing to see our government attacking people for a mens rea crime when they're established. They're almost evaporating the requirement for mens rea. They're saying that if you're physically present, that shows an intent to be corrupt. That's literally the government's position, which I find very problematic, and is one of the reasons I'm optimistic that we'll win in Fischer, because I think that would affect many, many laws. You can't just evaporate the mens rea.
You're listening to The Gold Report with Dr. Simone Gold. To watch this week's full episode of The Gold Report, please visit www.thegoldreport.com.